The ACC has released its 2023 TV schedule. We'll talk about whose home opener is just as important as the ones that are away. But more importantly, what season opener has to come out swinging with a punch in hopes of eventually getting to the college football playoffs.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Keenis Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. Each and every day, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel so you can see our lovely faces. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Today, we're going over the 2023 early schedule TV set times for ACC football. We got Kenton here joining us, talking about what season openers are going to be the most eye-opening and which ones do we maybe say meh about and should be easy dubs for our respective teams around the conference. Kenton, how we doing?
I am great as always. I'm ready to get into these schedules because there is a lot of complaining going on early. And you know me, I'm going to make fun of you if you're complaining. And so there's some teams, there's some fan bases that are going to hear from me today. They're going to hear some words that they don't like, but I don't care one bit about it. We're going to talk about these, how these teams are starting off the season right away.
Certainly. We'll start now with all Eastern time zone numbers. So make sure that you are writing it down. You're clear. You're good to go. You're setting your TV screens. We know that there are ACC fans across the globe. On Thursday, August 31st, we kick off with Elon at Wake Forest at 7 p.m. on ACC Network, followed by NC State at UConn, which the time has yet to be determined, on CBS.
Absolutely, and that's going to be these are going to be some interesting matchups. I think that all of those should be ones where on paper these teams are going to handle it quite easily, but you never know. This is why we play the game, or that's why we play the games, even though these games should be easy. These two games that are starting the season off, they could make the ACC look real good. They could make the ACC look real bad, and I mean real bad. And I ain't talking Michael Jackson bad. I'm talking the actual bad.
I think this is a pretty soft openers considering where the ACC is trying to be in a landscape of competing with the Power Fives. I think that, NC State certainly has its work cut out for them. They can't slack on playing a team like UConn, who's known to upset a team or two that, they know how to punch above their weight. So I think it's definitely something to keep the eye on as you watch your first round of games here for the ACC.
For sure. And that's a UConn team that got better and better as the season went on. That is a team that was absolutely decimated early last season by NC State, but ended up making a bowl game. That is a team that everybody said, oh, they're going to be terrible. They ended up beating Boston College. That is a team that if you want to sleep on them and say, well, they were bad last year, so we can trust that we'll hang another 50 burner on them, do it if you want to. You'll end up limping your way out of Connecticut.
Certainly. Moving on to Friday, September 1st, it'll be a nightly affair for Miami, Ohio at Miami at 7 p.m. on ACC Network, followed by Louisville versus Georgia Tech at 7:30 in the Bank of America Stadium.
The Battle of the Miamis. It should be you talk about a soft landing spot, a game that you should dominate. Miami should dominate this game. If they're going to be a serious team, if they're going to be a team that is in any conversations in terms of national or even conference relevance, this has to be a game where they establish early, hey, this is not what y'all thought this was. This is not a situation where we're competing and we're near the same level. The only thing we have the same is the name, and that's it. And that's what needs to happen there. The Louisville-Georgia Tech game should be a very interesting one to watch because a lot of folks believe in Brom at a high level. Key is not getting that same respect in the conference or nationally. So it'll be great to see if these two teams are as far apart as many people believe they are.
It will certainly be disappointing if Miami, we're trying to see who is the real Miami, because I feel like that should be a given considering who the Hurricanes are and are trying to be under Mario's tutelage. But for Louisville, Georgia Tech, correction here, is at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Make sure you want to get that right. Bank of America. I live in Baltimore. So, I'm just all around from North Carolina. So I'm assuming Charlotte. It's just, all the things, all the vibes. Either way it goes. Louisville, Georgia Tech. I think it's going to be a good one because we don't yet know what Louisville is going to be. And so it'd be a quick punch in the mouth should Georgia Tech take them down, a team whose schedule we will be going over soon. But it feels like a Georgia Tech team that has so much to prove and just kind of is sitting in this underdog. We should be better than we are. Sometimes we show it, sometimes we don't kind of energy.
Yeah, and Georgia Tech, I don't think they're in a season where anybody's expecting anything from them. I think both of these coaches, because they're in year one, they'll have a lot of grace. Nobody's expecting Georgia Tech to do much. However, with Louisville, that's not the case. People have expectations for this team. People believe in Braum at a very high level. This is going to be an important game one for that group.
Well, Coach Britton's in his 1.5 years, so it's really not – he's never not been a head coach before.
I mean, he was the head coach at the end of last year, but it was with the interim tag. That don't really count. When you got the interim tag, that's like being a sneaky linker in the situationship. You can't claim that as part of we've been together for a year. If you was a sneaky link for 11 months and you just got officially asked, or you just asked, hey, do you want to make this a thing? Y'all ain't been together for a year. You've been together for a month. Y'all been knowing each other for a year, but y'all ain't been together. He hasn't been the actual head coach. He's been interim, and they finally removed that interim tag.
Sure. And as we are going through, let's pay some bills right here, right quick. We want to remind you guys about our friends at FanDuel. As you know, the NBA playoffs are in full swing. A lot of coaching updates and people already trying to plot and plan for next season. Nick Nurse, Monty Williams, people trying to, scour their way. Ime Udoka getting a new job. It's all the things that's going to make for a grand time next NBA season. But right now, the Nuggets are getting ready to face off against the Miami Heat for the NBA Finals, and it should be a good one. So make sure you get your bets ready, because right now new customers can get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. There's no better place to bet all of the playoff action than America's #1 sports book. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Please bet responsibly. We're walking through the 2023 TV schedules for ACC football. We talked about Thursday, talked about Friday. Now we're moving on to the big slate.
Quick note, real quick note. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but real quick note here. My Pistons hired an ACC alum in Monty Williams. Do you know what college Monty Williams went to?
Georgia Tech.
Incorrect, but you got the colors right. Notre Dame.
Is that an ACC school?
Yeah, they're technically an ACC school.
No, they're technically not.
I mean, they have full voting rights. They're an ACC school.
This episode is about football, and I don't see them on the docket.
Well, they technically are on the docket because we're talking about the ACC schedule of games, and Notre Dame is up and all through a lot of ACC teams scheduled like a Tomb Raider, so they're on the docket. Whether we want them to be there or not, they're on the docket. Full voting member.
Yikes. So let's talk about September 2nd. This is, again, a big weekend for ACC football. On Saturday, you'll have Virginia versus Tennessee in Nashville at noon on ABC. Deep side for that one. Northern Illinois at Boston College at 12. So let's start with our noon games. I think that's going to be a good one for Boston College, a tough one for Virginia.
The thing is, I think that Virginia is in a much better situation here than Boston College because nobody's expecting you. If you get beat by 50 in this game, who's going to look at Virginia and say, wow, that's a disappointment. What a terrible game you played. Nobody saw this coming. Who would say that?
I mean, getting beat by 50 is pretty embarrassing considering we are trying to better position ourselves as a conference.
Sure, but you're looking at one of the bottom feeders against one of the best teams in the conference. That's like if Vanderbilt played Clemson. Vanderbilt is going to get their heads beat in because they're not on that level. They're not You can't have the bottom matching up against the top and say, well, yeah, it's a conference. Your bottom should be able to compete with our top. Well, I didn't realize how that sounded, but you get what I'm saying. You shouldn't be saying, hey, these two teams are comparable when they're not. They're objectively not. Tennessee was one Hendon Hooker injury away from being in a playoff last year. Virginia, their season was a train wreck last year, an objective disaster. So, I mean, I don't think that's there's much relevance to that. However, Boston College, Northern Illinois is important for this reason. Northern Illinois was horrible last year and their group of 5. They were horrible last year and their group of 5. If Boston College lets this game be close, let alone lose it, Hafley really might get fired at halftime. He really might get fired there.
Well, I mean, what are the expectations for Boston College? We haven't gone over their schedule yet, but have we? We have gone over their schedule. And so winning about 5 games is going to be, a lot for them. I think this one is a good one.
But that's the thing. If you're going to win 5, you cannot lose this game because Northern Illinois has to be one of those ones. If you're playing a really good group of 5 team, I can understand. You're playing a group of 5 team. I believe Northern Illinois had 2 or 3 wins. I could be wrong. They could have had less than that, but that's how many I believe they won last year. You can't have that. You cannot have that team beat you. You just can't.
Let's talk about the 3:30 slate here. 4 o'clock around that area. Wofford at Pittsburgh. It'll be on ACC Network at 3:30, and then Colgate and Syracuse at 4 p.m. on ACC Network Extra. Kind of crappy to have to play on ACC Network Extra. Ain't gonna hold you for your season opener, and let alone have to play Colgate. But I think Syracuse can handle it.
Yeah, these are both games where you're supposed to win this game by 1,000. Like this, you're not playing teams that are FBS. You're not playing teams that are quote unquote on your level. You have to assert yourself as the dominant team right away. Make no mistake, leave no doubt, come out early, dominate, and don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it to, well, we got to back off from the rest. Don't leave it to none of that. You have to dominate these teams. When you are the superior team, you have to go be that. And I believe both of these teams will be in terms of Pitt against Wofford and Syracuse against Colgate.
North Carolina will play in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium. I finally figured it out. At 7:30 on ABC. Old Dominion will play at Virginia Tech at 8 p.m. on ACC Network. Now, the 7:30 game, Battle of the Carolinas. I've seen some content go out in Carolina versus North Carolina. It's still weird to me that people consider South Carolina, but, I digress. I think this is going to be a good one for North Carolina in terms of the fact that you're playing a South Carolina team that knows how to upset a couple people, especially those in our conference, the biggest one of all being Clemson last season. And then you got Old Dominion playing Virginia Tech, which a Virginia Tech team that we don't have high of hopes for, but still have to play the game. This is one that, frankly, I think if they want to show us any sort of positivity, have to win.
Both of these are big games. So far, almost every set of games we've looked at, either one was important or one wasn't, or we were talking about, both of these games are not factors. Both of these games are big games. If North Carolina wants to prove, hey, we're a serious team, we can do this, they have to show up against South Carolina. And if Drake May wants to have that Heisman run that everybody believes he's capable of, he has to show up big time in this game. But also the supporting cast has to show up for Drake May in this game. And then Old Dominion and Virginia Tech. Old Dominion upset Virginia Tech last year, and many people stopped paying attention to them. Many people, if you would ask them, folks in the ACC, hey, how did ODU do last year? They'd say, oh, yeah, they upset Virginia Tech. They probably had a pretty good season. Wrong. That team went 3-9 and ended the season on a 6-game losing streak. This is not – that ODU team saw a ton of turnover in terms of players leaving and going elsewhere. And so I say that this is important because while they are technically an FBS school, group of 5 school, Virginia Tech needs to dominate this game. Virginia Tech cannot allow this game to be close.
I feel like dominate is very, very strong.
I understand that, and I mean it. This is an ODU team that was 3-9 last year and had a ton of players leave, a ton of impact players leave. You cannot tell me that team should be competing with you if you're a serious team in the ACC. If you're a team that's going to shock the world, which would be what it would be for Virginia Tech to have an 8-9 win season. Heck, even a 6 or 7 win season, would be shocking the world a little bit. If you're going to do that, you can't have this game be close.
So we are obviously talking through Labor Day weekend. There's going to be a lot of labor pains, for the ACC figuring out stuff in week 1. But you get to this granddaddy on Sunday. That is LSU versus Florida State. This is a game that in Orlando at 7:30 on ABC. Florida State is going to be out in droves. We know that LSU travels well. But for the Noles, to me, this is the one who has most to prove. He kind of punched him in the mouth last season. I know they're looking for their lick back, but I think this is a different Seminoles team that's going to play at a even higher level than they did last year.
See, this game is much more of a conference barometer than you would look at for Virginia and Tennessee, because last year Florida State upsets LSU. LSU goes on to win the SEC West. And to me, when you look at this game, this one is one where conference pride is on the line. Let's make no bones about it. This is a conference pride game straight up and down. If I'm talking about Virginia and all their struggle, no, you can't. If you have the audacity, if you have the gumption to hang your conference pride on them, you just don't like the conference, and that's that on that. However, this game, Florida State, in a year where everybody has high in the sky apple pie hopes for this team, you're going to be a banner carrier for the conference. You need to show it in game 1. I didn't believe in them last year, game 1. I do this year. Don't let me down. Don't embarrass me. Don't show out in front of these people. You better put on the show.
Who are you looking at?
Well, I'm just saying. That's what I would say.
You're staring into the camera like you're talking directly to the Florida State people.
And that's what I would tell them. That's how I want them to feel it. I want the Noles stay in these comments. So I want y'all to send this to your players and let them know we believe in you now. We believe in you. Don't let us down.
As we're moving through the LSU Florida State game, we, of course, have the Monday matchup. If you haven't got quite enough of your football fix, it'll be Clemson at Duke at 8 p.m. on ESPN. Clemson being the defending ACC champions, Duke being a team that arguably is ready to even be considered a part of the next level or upper echelon of our conference. Playing at Duke, Clemson is probably in for an awakening, because I think people don't understand how much improvement Wallace Wade has had since the Mike Elko era has begun.
Well, I'll tell you this much. This is another one of those games that is important for both teams.
It's a conference barometer, because if Clemson can't get it done and they're supposed to be the standard, we're in for a long season.
Well, I disagree with that, because there are other teams now that are in that conversation that are being looked at as, hey, the throne is up for grabs, pretty much.
But what other teams besides Pitt have recently been ACC champions?
Well, it's not about what teams have been ACC championships. It's about what teams or have won ACC championships. It's about what teams can, what teams we believe can do it.
There's a lot of ACC teams that could, of course, win the ACC championship, but haven't quite maybe been able to figure it out against the Clemson Tigers.
But that's why I say this game is important, because if Clemson is to have this get back season that everybody's talking about, and them saying, hey, we are still here.
How do you have a get back season when you won? That don't make no sense.
Because Clemson is on a different level than the rest of the ACC in terms of expectation. Every other team in the ACC, if they have what Clemson did last year, that's a great year for them, objectively speaking. Pitt, when they won with Kenny Pickett, lost in the bowl game. That was a great season for them. If Wake Forest were to win 10 games, win the conference championship, go lose in a New Year's Six bowl game, that's a great season for them. NC State, UNC, Miami, any of these teams besides them, that's a great season. Clemson's standard is, are you in the playoffs? If you're not in the playoffs, or if you didn't just barely miss the playoff by one game or whatever, then that's a problem. And that's where their standard is. That's where their bar is. So this is their get back year in terms of, we are still nationally relevant. We're not just relevant to the ACC. We are nationally relevant. If they're going to have that get back year, they need to show Duke early. Hey.
So it sounds like you're part of that fake Clemson, we're the underdog, everyone believes in us type of hype train.
Wow, that's a big accusation there. This is why you can't let folks get blonde hair. They start acting unusual and different. But the reality is, I don't believe that Clemson are underdogs and that nobody believes in them in this conference. We're having two different conversations.
Clemson's about as bad as Georgia at this point when it comes to who didn't believe in them.
Nobody's as bad as Georgia. I mean, Nolan Smith saying that they said that team was going to win 6 or 7 games. That's probably why he got drafted in the second round, because they looked at him and said, "Ooh, his CTE is kicking in early." That man is not. It's something that's not exactly right up there early. No offense. I know CTE is a very serious thing, but very seriously, I know teams were looking at him like, "What? Who said y'all were going to be a 7 win?" Worst case scenario, people thought y'all were going to be 10. But that's my point. This Clemson team, that is their bar. That's their standard. I'm not saying they're going to be the underdog in any game they play in the ACC this year. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, if they want the national relevance that they once had, if they want that cachet to say, hey, we are not just big dogs in the ACC. We're not just big dogs in the small pond, the big fish in the small pond. We're the sharks, even if you drop us in the Pacific. We are the apex predator wherever we go. Then they need to establish that early. And on the flip side of this, if Duke wants to say, hey, we're not just good in the coastal, we good everywhere. You put us on the field, we'll show you how good we are. This is a game for them to show that. This is a game, and if they keep it close, I say that's a win for them. But them winning the game all right, oh, boy, it would be a parade inside of Durham.
You definitely are a coastal hater, so I definitely want this one for Duke so we can sit there and say maybe the odds are forever in everyone's favor this year. It's just you got to play the game, and that's why you do it. We're going to talk about part 2 of the TV schedule here in just a bit. We want to make sure that we do some housekeeping notes. Make sure you download, subscribe to the podcast from anywhere you listen to any of our shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. We do have a new Locked On Clemson, so if you want to talk and listen to our guys who are telling you all about the Tigers, if you want to listen to the Canes, you want to listen to the Noles, all the things in between, make sure you listen to our friends here at the network, and you subscribe to our YouTube channel. 1,000 is good, but 2,000 is better. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, until next time.